I'm Matthew C Bosworth, an artist, painter. I'd like to take you through a brief history of a painter's life. And what that may really entail. It all started in '97, really, when I was 21. I was finally drinking age and capable of doing all the things that grown-ups were capable of doing. Really, it started with this. A flask. And drinking. From the beginning, I was the king of spades. I began a greeting card company I titled Doobie-Stein in '97 and created a number of greeting cards. This is one that existed, the photos, over the ages of 15 years. It was a view of Jimi Hendrix through a broken ashtray that I'd drawn. I was really into drawing then. I drew a lot of things, almost obsessively. I mastered Dorothy, learning the softness, not to overdo detail, at a time when I'd had to master detail, and finally fall back and find that equilibrium. Wasn't long before I got sick of perfection and met a man named Jim Murray, who secretly in this photograph displays that union and is titled something different, for we were paranoid then, back when we thought the world was against us. To the left, Jim Murray kept his head shaven, and to the right, I was a shaggy kind of guy. We wore the same kind of clothing and seemed to be of the same ilk. Creatures of the night. I continued with oil, finding different techniques and brush strokes to make interesting things. This time of my life the paintings were generally bad, but 1 in 5 was worth keeping. Ideas of abstract notions very soon filled the landscape of my works. The signature in the bottom right was something that would follow me, but not for good. As you can see, colors were definitely under experimentation, with a mixture of violet, orange, blue, green, and the spectrum of a rainbow that didn't even really connect with the proper color code. I really was still learning. This was the year 2000. I created many things. I was active. Before I even had known Vincent van Gogh, I created a self-portrait in corduroy hat, with a sky in the background and the foreground all balanced by the thirds. I came to this conclusion myself for the regular balance, and over time grew to distort that greatly from the boring, dead-on view of a landscape that could be stretched and centralized better. But the brushstrokes continued with excellence. The American flag necklace I wore for years, patriotic as my country seemingly deceived me, left me suffering. I was stuck in a Pennsylvania town with no escape. I worked and tried to save, but it was nothing compared to what the world cost. It was turn of the millennium, the year 2000. We all survived. Nothing really to worry about, we just didn't know. Then there was some of these things. Generally something most people would quest after in life. I generally found in a decent model. A general blonde of the age 19, I was mostly interested in all her freckles. The painting itself was misconceived by probably everyone so far, but in this piece I introduced a new technique of changing my oil paint and trying to use honey. It was terrible. I had to do a lot of damage repair for this piece, and because it was considerately my first model, I wanted to make sure that it was a painting well done. My technique and quality of painting wasn't very good at the time. This piece brought me a long way. I worked on it for weeks. The landscapes could never leave. The dark nights and lonely woods, a place I called home, when Pennsylvania surrounded me with a population of, I don't know what to say, just other people. Fiery were the leaves of 2001. Fall 2000. Time for abstract ideas, dreamy creations. I eventually found back to subject matter, models, this time trees. Wasn't having it so lucky with the girls there. Generally, if you had money in the bars, I guess that got you somewhere, but I was working for minimum wage, which sucked. But I love that tree. I called it the elephant tree, on Elm and Chemung in Waverly. A combination of 3 towns. It's very big, very big. Landscapes always riddled my interest in buttering up the canvas with sweetness. In time, my second model, Johanna Graham, was a great girl, good poise, and for sure I was able to finally start using oil paint in a way that was what I'd consider truly artistic. More landscapes, there's no escape. These were the doomed singing trees of Guilderland Center, where I grew up and got my degree in high school. Diploma, I guess you'd say. Did well there. Really liked that town. Lots of friends and forest. Many scenes, similar nature. The French's Hollow, overlook of a reservoir that we grew, chilled over the train tracks, made pennies. Went into the depths of creating the doomed swinging post, where there were vines and trees and we could launch ourselves and land like we were Ewoks or something. Back home in Pennsylvania, though, we had a really nice dog. Few dogs. This is Shelby, the Springer Spaniel. She was awesome. This was the chair I sat on, read books, and lived my life of that era that you'll probably know not much about in time, but she was a great dog, very loving. I was so broke then, I painted this image on cardboard. And framed it. Suddenly I got into the desert. I think it was something to do with Estranged, lonesome, disattachment from society. No friends. My job was horrendous. Practically nothing. I worked at Kmart and was department manager of almost every single little box area in that spot. But man, I loved it. I like Garden Center. I did a group of these desert paintings. Honestly, 5 in one night. I was just really going. Toward the end, they got really good. A lot of people took a liking to them. Particularly Jim Murray, who by then was in North Carolina. I got to go visit. Went down and saw him. I was cross-stitching at the time, with needle and thread, just trying to make time go by so I could get out of there. This giant piece took about 2 years. Maybe 1 year. 1 year and 1 month or something. Very long. Got into flowers finally. You know? Sooner or later, landscape, still lifes, nudes. It always riddles the beginning. Framed him. Visited Jim Murray down in North Carolina, and by then, energy kicked hard. Suddenly, I had the ability to do some serious artwork. I created this. Titled it Fuck the Doomed. It was a great piece, just a common landscape with a background of desert and some action, some life, some birds. I went down, tried to live there, to live in North Carolina, got a job landscaping. It was really good fun. I enrolled into Davidson, a university that's pretty much a Ivy League school, I guess. I got in, but nothing really seemed to work out. I ended up having to go back to Pennsylvania. But we had an art show. Designed an old train station to be an art gallery, and they let us have some artwork in there for the show. I was sure to include all the desert scenes and Fuck the Doomed, my cross-stitch. Back in Pennsylvania, I was hurting on the inside. I felt failure. Estranged. Very simple artwork, you can see, spanned that time. Just random, lucky to have finished things. But there was hope. I continued trying to find work, earning a living, not starvation. It was hard. I was working a couple hours a week, pretty much mopping the floor for a store, just barely enough to pay for rent and food. And that's when it began. I decided that if I couldn't live as a person, that I'd live as an artist. And went home to the canvas that I lived. The legend of old Granddad, what originally filled this flask. For years. I lived in the canvas and went in and out of not knowing really what I was doing or where I was going. I kind of grew, kind of died and was born again. Maybe it happened a lot. I'm still me, but I began getting more and more active with the artwork. I took a liking in the orchid flower, began painting them like crazy. All kinds of orchid scenes, numbers of paintings. They went on and on. I made a series, an entire orchid series. I was thinking to make a calendar, you know. Some of them were even very complicated. Amazing pieces with great stories, each one. I can imagine the art historian and the psychological mind trying to explain. It's really just a simple story after all. This painting was created using a small painting to spread paint on as a palette, and in the end, it was a painting itself. Rock stars came into the picture, did their thing, you know, but the orchids lived on. I was really insistent on completing many paintings of orchid. And I did. Numbers of them. Braja underwater with fish. Pterodactyls. Strange flowers. All kinds of flowers. You can almost imagine. For a guy, flowers? You'd think you get flowered out. Well, that's eventually what happened. I decided I was no longer of use as a human to the area I lived, nor did I have a reason to stay there, and it was time to begin my journey as a hiker. I planned to hike across America, writing in a book about the pathway, head north, kind of follow the balance of good weather. Through Ithaca and the Bumble lands of central lower New York, it was pretty much just getting to know the compass, because there's nothing there. I found my way to Northville, which was a town no one would hear about unless you knew of the Northville Placid Trail. I followed the pathway up that way to Long Lake, where I met people that introduced me to SUNY Potsdam. I fell in love with the campus. And decided to go. First I moved to Ogdensburg. Kept painting. I missed my sister. Knew she was way over there, in a town that I barely escaped. Kept on painting. Improved. The orchid series was glowing. You can imagine. I developed an interest in Egypt, Egyptian history, painted stuff. Kept with the orchid. But abstract expressionism was on its way. The adventures of Boz and Jim, to the left and right here, well, center. The art journey was about to explode. Models returned. Ideas flourished. Creatures, masterpieces. Kept repeating. women, perfection, sweetness. It just kept riding down miles and miles of life, grandeur. SUNY, Potsdam. I knew the count of girls would be everywhere, and subliminally, it said its own story in my artwork. Abstraction, creativity, a secret connection with extraterrestrials, skill. This painting sold before it even dried to a lawyer in New York City. I was happy for the business. Then I was commissioned by someone to paint something that would frighten their children. It worked. Some ideas came myself, twisted with Egypt, the desert, animals, flowers, trees. Where was I going? Abstract expressionism exploded. I painted an entire journey of Jim and Bosworth adventuring together. To some, it looks like chaos in a bucket, but this was truly one of the most important pieces, painted in 2004, pre-college era, and ready for the rapture to come. I was getting tattooed for doing lumber work, working at Wally World as a garden dude, saving some money. The abstract expressionism was on fire. Then back to perfection. Why not? The battle within pursued, ensued, and this was the last painting before college. Kinda did it on the run, just wasting time in another town far away. It's a gift. The door to painting one lie waiting, and with it I painted a bird on entry in the book of life. I did ceramics as well, and was interested in my elephant, included him in the still life secretly. It was a good piece, though some of the stuff was questionable. I think I knocked it down pretty good as a project. It rests on my sister's wall as a gift now. I continued with self-portraits of insanity, creating artwork that most people wouldn't believe. It finally had happened. Sadly, I broke my face. It turns out partying in college can sure do a number on you when you're not looking. Those skinny beds, just remember, if you're in with a girl at night, you might not want to be 8 feet above the ground, or 10. See what I mean? That was the bed. Got the girl back as a model. She's a very great woman and an important love of my life. And friend, forever. There were many paintings I did for painting one. You'd think she would have loved them. Beautiful still lives. Just amazing. Giant paintings, 3 canvases at once. Projects you wouldn't believe for final. Oh yeah, everyone was happy. Through the summer I practiced, got another model, thought to do an action piece. I really liked this one. I brought in the stars, got into shading a lot. I even sculpted a little bit with some hammer and nails and Camelot 2.0. a legendary location where I became the king of spades with the king of hearts, clubs, and diamonds. We ran the house and learned Beirut like it was nobody's business. Nothing. Had a legends list. For years it went on. Years. I painted great things then. Priceless. Sometimes I slipped up, but what do you do? Painting 2, our project was to do a portrait as we see ourselves, and a portrait as the world sees us. Bonita was a good model. I didn't have the best of angles, but a pretty decent one. It was a long time we got to work on this, so you can tell I kind of overworked it a little. But it works. Then bam! You can imagine the on-fire Camelot power thruster. We had all kinds of bar scenes, Beirut table blasters, drinkathons. One day, I was the samurai bartender on Halloween. Didn't even break a bottle wearing the sword. Once. I wore the mask of Anubis. Did some printmaking as well. Met Diane LaCour. She had a Honda CR-V I fell in love with. The car was amazing. An SUV. Compact recreation vehicle from 1997, blue. I made a painting of it, in motion. We had an awesome backyard at Barclay in '06 for fall. All this campfire wood, canopies. I don't know about the view, though. Started liking the stuffed animals. I painted the camel with a bucket hat. And then the giraffe with nothing. But they were a combo. They worked out well together. Like friends. Octopus. Pretty crazy, you can imagine. Pretty crazy. It went on. Outer Space Owl. Detail. Painting 3 and 4, I was just a master waiting for the door. Making things like this, as you can imagine, it's probably in a museum right now. The lithostone was amazing. I really like lithography. Just don't know what to do about that. Except make prints, frame them, hook everyone up and sell stuff. I think I sold a few of these. Self-portrait. As Jägermeister deer. Halloween's always played a good part for us. I wrapped up my college with this abstract painting of a Boston Terrier. Figured it was my way of saying, thanks guys, I had a really great time doing all that, you know. I think anyone would have, but I definitely did. And that was about 2008. Thing is, it's 2012. So through the college until I took the extended college kid in limbo scenario, I had another album. To the present day. I missed college. I wanted to go back. Kind of blamed everything on the idea that the young students were sheep, because they were Year of the Sheep. And Year of the Monkey was coming in, so I wanted to kind of push that and do a 7-arm-legged monkey saying Potsdam welcomes you. Make them feel like something good's gonna happen here. I had plans, but man, money sure knows how to drive a man crazy. Eventually I started a masterpiece. Having fallen in love with Diane LaCour's Honda CR-V, I actually went out and bought my own. Same year, make, model, color. Drove it, loved it, still have it on the road. Thing's amazing. I've got it up to 224,900, and it's gonna keep going. This is how I started, with white and yellow. As a Jägermeister deer, my life continued. Definitely as a crazy artist, you can only try to figure out what. I continued painting, you know. I made this painting of Dujanoo, my Honda CR-V, I named it. DOOZJHANOO. Technically born in 96, it's a 97 Honda CR-V, blue, now with a black hood, but that's another story. Some detail shots here. You can see the different creations of abstract expressionism at its finest. This was at a time where my living style was devastated and lost almost everything, really. I was living in a busted shack. But man, I painted one hell of a masterpiece in doing so. The upside-down corner depicts Bukta and I dragging wood from the pond region at the busted shack. It's kind of an unintentional blemish that just happened, and I happened to notice it upside down one day. Sometimes, when people ask me how I do it, I think to myself, I do half of it. The artwork does the other half. I titled this piece Adventures of Dujanoo. Signed it. As such, from 13 December 2010. It's all painted on the sides, framed up, and good to go. And I kind of found out about extraterrestrials. We laughed about him for quite a while, you know. There's a lot of research there, a lot of information. I should try to get into it sometime. It's entertaining for sure. And in the end, I think it's all good. I titled this piece Rabbit Pterodactyl, by the way. The model this time was the wood stove from Amanda Fierro's place. Turned out pretty good. Pretty good. Kept going. By then, Camelot 4.0 was happening, and my artwork was still living on. In this piece, I tried to depict the Kraken. I don't know why I was so interested. Just an interesting creature, creator. Giraffes again. Found a dark place. Had a blackout series, really. It was funny. I came out of living out of a tent for a while and back on my feet in a really beautiful place. I did great artwork there and lived a full year at Camelot 4.29. 2011. I titled this River Dragon's Drum. This one's Coco Pelli chases Boz's demons. Needed to get that blackface over. Made a return to the Orchid series in time for Christmas. Gave one of each of these paintings to the members of my family. My mom, brother, sister, grandma, and grandpa. It was definitely a heavy drinking stage for me. When I was trying to grip all the friends that were slipping away into the lives they were going after in college. One of my friends stuck through, and it was like we were on a ship, always finding the next morning in our Bloody Marys to maintain strength through the day and night. Mayan Intervention Ascends a Spiral Staircase, 2012. Inspired by Marcel Duchamp. I really enjoyed his piece and wanted to do my own version better. With Lord Pakal being such interest in recent archaeological finds, the tomb, his obvious operation of a starcraft from hundreds of years after the death of Christ, led me to believe that people understood machining, flight, operational systems, and that there was a bigger picture going on here, you know? A definite bigger picture. Again, I've done a lot of research and it's fun to know. I suggest it highly. And thanks for joining me here for a 40-minute session of Boz and the art I've created over the past 15 years. Leave some comments and suggestions. Maybe I can come up with a good piece for any of you guys, you know. If you have any favorites or questions about my work, feel free to comment and I'll get back to you. I'm pretty active here, you know. I always looking. My next piece will be coming up soon, and I'll try to keep you updated with all the adventures and such. Thanks again for tuning in to 38 minutes and 47 seconds of Boz's artwork.